Hey everybody. So we're going to work on a little array practice today. Basically, we're going to solve a couple problems where we will walk through an array using different loops, either for loop or a while loop, and in an attempt to just find information about the array. So right here we have a little array, just 5 in length. I went ahead and assigned some basic values to it on the coding bat examples that I created on my blog. You can take a look and try some of those, but it'll be very similar if to practice to be using. So the first one that we're going to work with is just a simple sum. So if we're trying to find the sum of these items, obviously, what do we need? Well, we need a integer, right? I'm going to go ahead and just call it sum. I should start my sum at 0. So again, I declare a new primitive variable, the int, call it sum, and set its value to 0. Okay, now I'm going to use a for loop to start. So for int I equals 0, I less than, now I know that it's 5, but if I wanted to change the number of the values in this array, make it bigger for some reason, or just write it in general. I'm just going to go ahead and write in general, do nums.length. We've studied this before, but again, that's just the length is 5, so it automatically puts it right in there. It's a good general tool to use just so you know how long the array is, or you can use how long the array is. Now, I can go ahead and put my braces, and what comes next? Well, at each time for each value, what do I want to do? Each of these values I want to add it in. So if I did a little quick sum, I'd have 17 minus 5, which is 12. So my answer, if I print it out, should equal 12. But so we can use that for our test. So each time I'm going to do what? I'm going to take sum, right? I'm going to add into it the value, a particular value at index I. Okay, and then get rid of that line, and then I can just print out I need to save this. Save as. There we go. Run it, and in fact I did get 12. Awesome. So that was a nice little thing. That's a little kind of a practical example. Now to connect to some of the other things that we're going to learn, I'm going to go ahead and just turn this into a method, right? So obviously we solved this. Now to write a method, I could call it public static int and then sum, and I could do int. Again, we'll talk about variable names later on, but here we go. Well, actually, I could talk about it now. I'm just going to go ahead and call it nums because it's a local variable, this formal variable. Formal parameter. I'm just going to toss it down there, and then that way I can get rid of this. Oh, I forgot that line of code. And there we go. Now I have it as a method. Clean it up here a little bit. So all I did was I took the code that I had written, popped it into its own little helper method. That way I would clean up my main method, and what you'll see is I'll just run a couple of these, be able to kind of work with the same data and solve all these problems. Again, on the coding bat, you'll be able to test it. You're doing this. This is essentially what you're doing. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just print up the sum of nums. Don't be too confused about what's going on right here. All I'm saying is that I have my nums, the array. I'm going to pass it through this method, right? The sum method. What does the sum method do? Well, it takes your array, goes through it, adds up all the numbers, and returns an int, and that's what it's doing. Oh, I need to make sure I return it. I would have gotten a return sum. Okay, again, there's my bookmark, my first and my last. lines are initializing the thing I want to return and then returning it and doing some work in the middle to get there. We'll see the same structure very frequently. So now I'll build it and run it, and there you go, it still works. Okay, so I'll just comment out that line. Now the next thing I want to do is do what? I could take the average, right? I could very similarly just the integer average, chopping off, losing the, we could work with a double and stuff, but I'll leave that to you to do in the home. But now let's work on counting. Okay, what's the value of counting? Let's say I wanted to count, I had a whole long array and I wanted to count how many positive values there were. Okay, so obviously clearly I just see if counting 0 is positive, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 4 values that are positive. How would I do that? Well, obviously I'm going to do a little count, right? A little count variable. I start my count at 0 for obvious reasons, because I don't know, there could be no positive numbers in there. Then now I'm going to walk through the array. This is something that you do all the time, just walking through an array to modify things, to add up things, to count things, just all sorts of different reasons to walk through. Okay, so I'm going to use the same kind of control scheme, or excuse me, the same for loop control, and I will do that. Okay, now am I going to count just count how many every single ones? No, I'm only going to count it if something is true. If the value is greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0, okay, for positive numbers. So, well, let's just code that, right? So at each cycle of the for loop, if the value of nums at position I, right, if the value at position 0, for example, position 1, is greater than or equal to 0, right, that would make it positive. What am I going to do? Well, I'm just going to increment count. Okay. Else, I'm just going to keep going, but really that's not anything. That's just would do it anyway. So we're going to cycle through that loop, and then I just want to do a little system.out.print of count. And let's take a look and see if it worked. What did I forget? Oh, can't spell. Okay. 4. Did that work? Yeah, right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, 0. We're counting as positive. So that worked, right? And again, we'll go through it. We had our for loop that just walked through, did a little conditional check if the value is greater than 0, and then just added the count. I'll go ahead and I could toss that down in a little method again. Public static int count positives and int nums. And again, now don't be freaked out by the fact that I can use the same variable in multiple places. Well, it's a local variable. So, but anyway, I'm going to cut this, cut it, and put it down here. Clean it up a little bit, and then what do I need to return to bookend it? Excuse me. Okay. Count positives of nums. Again, all I'm doing is printing. I'm calling this method count positives, taking in this value, nums. What does it mean to do that? You take in the array, you count, you do some actions, and then return an int, integer, which is the count. And so again, it should work, barring any typos. And there you go, it still worked. Awesome. So very similar, I'll just put that down there, comment it out. Awesome. So there's my count. Now very similar, I could do the same thing with a while loop. Now with a while loop, obviously we need to have our position number, right? So that I'm walking through. So my normal while loop, I'll start at 0, and while position is less than nums.length, then all I want to do is to walk through it. Obviously, I have this basic structure of a while loop is just do position plus plus. But now what line of code am I going to do each time? Well, I still need that count, right? So I actually need to declare two variables. I need the count, which is what I'm looking for in this problem that I'm trying to solve. And then I need to actually walk through the position. Again, that's why it's important to use your variables. I could just put in this basically the same code, right? If nums of position is greater than or equal to 0, right? Then all I have to do, I want to do a couple things. So if in my if statement, right? If it's greater than 0, then what do I want to do? Increment count, right? Count plus plus. So if it's greater than 0, then I want to increment count. Then now go ahead and save it. And then I'll just do a little system.out.print of count. And I got the same thing. Now, let's say I just made a little typo just to study some error analysis. And I put my braces after there. Okay, let's see what happens. What happened? Well, it's not doing anything, it seems. So what I can do to kind of debug, well, let me put it just a little system.out.print of the count. Put it in there. I can put the system.out.print in different places. That would kind of help me. And run. Yes, I do want to end the run. I'm going to run it. Oh, it seems kind of stuck, right? Well, why? Yeah, why is it stuck? It seems to be stuck here. Waiting, it's printed out the first three, but still doesn't reveal anything. So I'm gonna put a little system.out.print there and compile it. Yes, and run and continue. Oh, there we go. What happened? There's an infinite loop of some kind, right? That's why those threes keep printing. Well, because I didn't increment my position except in this if loop. Where did it get stuck? At position 3, right? Why? Well, it's negative. So if it's negative, is it ever going to see this increment? No. So we got to be really careful where we put that that position increment, the index increment. Now, if I run it and run, and there we go. I got my good thing. Again, I can toss this down to a method, but that teaches you how to count things. You also have to do use this kind of similar control statement to do count the negatives, and also count the and add up all the positive or add up all the negatives. It's a nice little couple exercises. Just go to my blog for coding, link to my Coding Bat page. And good luck. God bless.